expressed here are those of our hosts and guest speakers and do not represent the Uniformed Services University, the Department of War, or the Henry M. Jackson Foundation for the Advancement of Military Medicine, Incorporated. Hey guys, Austin Von Letkeman here, Mandatory Fun Day, and I'm on set of the Check Your Six Pack podcast. This podcast is done in conjunction with the Center for the Study of Traumatic Stress and Uniformed Services University. And the purpose of this podcast is to show the military and veteran community that despite the adversity someone may face from alcohol, whether they personally use it, struggle with it, or they have been impacted by its use from someone else, you can overcome it. There's no one size fits all when it comes to substance use and identifying that you have a problem. And throughout the course of this podcast, every episode, you're going to hear different perspectives, different stories, and people who have handled this issue in different ways. Our first guest is going to be Johnny Vargas, a close friend of mine and someone whose life has been impacted personally by alcohol. And he has a really, really interesting story to tell. I'm very excited. Johnny, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. I'm Johnny Vargas, and I've been in the military for 12 and a half years. I currently do social media stuff. I'm reaching out to people, trying to advocate for soldiers, their families, veterans, and people of that nature. I reach about 30 million people a month on social media, so I try to use those powers for good rather than evil. But yeah, I'm here to have a good time, and I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we really appreciate having you on. Can you tell us a little bit about your story, how alcohol and its consumption has personally impacted you?
Yeah, of course. So believe it or not, I'm 35 years old. And I didn't have my first drink until I was 25 years old. I was actually terrified of drinking, of consuming alcohol. And that's because my father was and is still an alcoholic. And I saw things that people probably shouldn't see as a child growing up. And I saw how alcohol could affect a marriage, could affect a relationship between a father and son, could affect a workplace relationships and stuff like that. And I told myself, I was like, I don't want any part of that. So I'm just never going to drink. I'm not even going to smell it. I'm not going to touch it because honestly, I also have a very addictive personality and I was scared of myself, having that alcohol and enjoying it. And then just being like, oh, okay, this is my whole personality. I'm just going to do this every day, all the time. And I kind of had to come to a realization of I can't let other people's actions and the way they lived their life define how I'm going to move forward with mine.
Sure.
And I made that decision at about 25 years old, and I had my first drink, and I didn't die. I'm still here, and it was weird. In my head, I was like, oh, I have years to make up for. This is awesome, and I made sure that I wasn't going down that path of okay, I'm just going to do this all the time, every day. But I think through the stories of others and through me seeing how other people treated alcohol and how it affected them, I was able to say okay, I'm fine with only 2 today, or only having this on Saturdays or whatever, So yeah, it's been really weird because also in the military, it's such a alcohol friendly environment. We make alcohol, we almost glorify it.
It's use is encouraged,
and the military creates that environment, I feel like, and you just have to adapt to it or just shun it completely. So it's been weird kind of finding that balance.
Sure. What was the catalyst or the trigger for you to consume alcohol for the first time at 25?
I think like I said, the military kind of glorifies alcohol in a way, and I was always the person that didn't drink at the platoon barbecues. I was at the wedding, I never did the champagne or the wine. And I had a conversation with my wife and other people that I trust, and they say, you can do this if you want. It's not, you don't have to be afraid of the alcohol or afraid of the addiction. That's up to you to decide. So if you consume it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've ever had in my life, and now I'm gonna go have 4 beers and drive, they probably wouldn't suggest that. But it was like that. What I said earlier of just, I can't let others, the actions of others, define how I'm gonna continue forward in my life.
How impactful do you think it was that it was your father that was that example for you versus maybe an uncle or even your mother? Do you feel like it had more of an impact because it was your dad?
Yeah, I think it had a huge impact. I mean, and it wasn't just him. It was, like my grandfather was a huge drinker, and some of my uncles, and I think my father, just seeing that every day,
Right.
and to give you like a visual, we had. Do you remember like those Jeeps, like the 24-volt Jeeps that you would drive around, like the little Power Wheels or whatever? My whole like the hood, you pop the hood, and there was like 80,000 like cigarettes and like beer cans all behind it, and he would almost like try to hide it, but we all knew, type of thing. Sure. And eventually he was like, you know what, I'm not going to drink anymore, and he actually stopped drinking for some time.
Really?
And then for years he just didn't have any drinks, and then all of a sudden it kind of creeped back into his life, and it took him over again. And he was secretive about it at first, but we all knew, type of thing. And
do you still have a relationship with him now?
I do. I don't hate the guy. Like, he's my dad. I love him.
Yeah.
And I think we're just not involved in each other's lives as much as we'd like to be. I mean, he's a little further away, and obviously with the military, I move, every few years. So that, those natural barriers there, but, yeah, I mean, we still talk and stuff like that. So
when I started to like kind of realize that I was having like an issue with alcohol, it was I came home from lunch one day at work, and I had a drink at lunch, and I actually did that a couple times, and I would chew gum or drink coffee to try and hide the smell on my breath. But is there a definitive moment when you realize like, oh, this is not normal behavior out of my father?
Yeah, I think when I got old enough to understand that he was acting certain ways at events, or the things he would say, or the slurs in his speech, I kind of, once I was old enough to understand, like, oh, like he's being altered. Like, this is different. This is not.
It's not my normal dad.
Yeah, and also he missed a lot of things that I didn't know later on is because he was too drunk to go.
Really?
Like, my basketball games or some football games, and it's not like he didn't want to go. To me, as a kid, I was like, oh, my dad doesn't want to support me. Like, all right, whatever. I moved on, and I just took it that my mom was my number one supporter, and her and I were going to do this with my brothers.
Right.
But then I later realized that not all, but a lot of those times is just he couldn't go, because of alcohol.
Sure, yeah. And your mom, I mean, she's incredibly involved in you, your wife, your children's lives to this day, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's in there.
Yeah. I mean, have you guys discussed this? Have you discussed it with your mom?
Yeah. I mean, my mother and I have had super open conversations about the consumption of alcohol, like in our lives and my father's life. And, it's a struggle, and it's hard to talk to my dad when he starts drinking. Like, he's there to have a good time, but then there's a certain point to where, and just much like friends I have and other family members, you hit that point of like, okay, this is no longer fun. Now I'm either taking care of you, or I'm trying to like avoid you because you're doing something dangerous, or you're saying stuff that's just not good.
Right. Yeah. Based on your experience, like, what are your views on how people that have a problem maybe should handle it? What are some of the warning signs that they could identify?
Honestly, it really depends on the person, because like I personally have gone through things that a child should never go through.
Yeah.
And for some people, alcohol is their kind of self-medication.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. And alcoholism runs in both my family and my wife's family. And I'm not going to speak for her side, but like there are alcoholics and recovering alcoholics in her family.
Sure.
And when I learned that, I was like, oh, great. Like, we're meshing these two issues, and they're just
dysfunctional units.
Yeah, and they're just going to flourish, and like my kids are going to become alcoholics, and they're going to marry somebody that's, So I started like going through all these things in my head, and I just try not to let those thoughts control me and stuff like that. But I don't know. I think there have been a couple times where I'm like, whoa, I probably should stop.
Right.
And to where I got these little voices in my head of like, you should do this, or you should say this, or you should go here, or you should do that. And I wouldn't normally do those things with a sober mind, but I'm well off enough to know like, oh no, all right, I'm done.
Right.
I'm not going to drink anymore. Like I'm gonna just go to sleep, or I'll see you later, guys, type of thing. So I don't know. It's just a lot of self-discipline.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and I'm still working on that. And like I have 4 kiddos, and I want to show them that you can control a lot of things if you just put your mind to it.
Has your wife influenced your relationship with alcohol? I mean, is she somebody that would tell you like, hey, I don't think we're moving in a positive direction here?
Yeah. And like I said, she has huge history in her family of alcoholism. And again, like I don't want to point any fingers or say specifically, but like
Sure.
it runs heavily in her family, just like in mine. So I think she had those fears too of, oh no, Johnny's going to have some drinks and he's going to be like my so-and-so, or
Yeah.
going to be like this guy or this girl, whatever, in my family. And I think that's kind of in the back of my mind too of hey, I really don't want to remind Naomi of her X, Y, and Z. You've met my wife, and she is just the sweetest thing.
Yeah.
And but she'll tell me when I'm wrong. She'll tell me right away. So I think having her, it's almost like bumper lanes on a bowling alley.
Yeah.
To where like if you shift a little to left, she's gonna bump you up towards the center. I think that's why I just came up with that in my head.
Yeah.
I think she's a good like guide. She's a really good guide for me, and she's not like controlling. She lets me do what I do, but she's that voice in the background of like, hey, this is what right looks like. Like make sure you have that in the forefront when you're making these decisions, doing these videos, what you say, stuff like that.
Sure. And do you feel like it's I don't know, do you have a responsibility to show your children what a healthy relationship with alcohol can look like? We live in a world where people consume alcohol, especially in American society. It's very prevalent. They are going to be exposed to it or given the opportunity to consume it one day. Do you feel like it's your responsibility to show them like, hey, this is what healthy looks like?
100%, because my parents did not. I say parents, but mostly my dad. They didn't show me. There was no purpose. They weren't like purpose driven in their drinking, if that's a thing. But when my wife and I consume alcohol, or if I'm at a barbecue and I have a couple beers or something, I'm not the person that when my kid comes up and asks like, oh, what is that? I'm like, oh, it's juice or whatever. Like I tell them like, no, this is like, I'm having a beer,
Right.
and it's an alcoholic beverage, and you can't have one because you're not of age. Like it alters, I don't give them like the whole science, like breakdown of like what alcohol does, but I don't hide that from them. And I wouldn't consume more than just a couple drinks, 2 or 3 drinks over several hours in front of them, because I don't want them seeing like, oh, daddy is just doing his own thing and now he's jumping in a pool with his clothes on. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I mean, I would do that anyways for like $20, but
Okay, so I got to ask. The first time I drank, I got drunk on box wine spritzers, and I got tanked. My goodness. I had somebody else giving me the drinks, actually. That was the very first time I drank. What was the first thing that you consumed that was alcoholic?
The first thing I ever consumed, as in my journey of like having a drink, was Mike's Hard Lemonade.
Mike's Hard Lemonade.
And then the second thing,
Reserve your judgment.
yeah, sorry, it was cheap, right? And then the second thing I went from Mike's Hard to Four Loko, and that was not a good jump.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't aware that
You went to the shadow realm as well.
Yeah, I went to the shadow realm, and
That's
I
almost
recovered.
as bad as Mad Dog.
Yeah, I'm glad I never had
Any
that.
military special in there?
No, some still reserved though.
Reserve. Oh my God, yeah. And so, I mean, what was it like when you had that first drink and then everything was fine? Like, was it a relief?
Honestly, I was scared. Like I remember, I'm pretty sure that we were in my kitchen at Fort Benning was my first duty station, so we were in Columbus, and we were in my kitchen, and it was me and my wife and our friend Kaylin, who actually is a super awesome recovering alcoholic. Like he hasn't drank in a long time, but I had this like Mike's Hard, and I think in my head it like hit me. I was like, whoa, like I had an alcoholic beverage, but no, it was fine. Like I didn't, I think I liked it because it was like sweet tasting, and But then like I had a beer and I was like, oh, disgusting. Like I hate beers. But then eventually I grew to like, oh yeah, there's hints of mahogany, you know. start throwing weird taste into beers. But yeah, I was scared. I was worried because in the back of my mind I was like, I don't become like your father.
Yeah.
Not that he's a bad man.
No, yeah, for sure.
Know, but in that aspect of how alcohol had shifted his course of life, I was like, don't become that person. Don't become that person. And that was always like the scary little thought in the back of my mind. But then I had to kind of gather those thoughts and like, again, like I'm steering this ship.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell myself which way to turn and stuff like that. So, you know, I really had to defeat those kind of thoughts in the back of my mind.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I grew up with a father that drank too much as well. You know, at one point he went to rehab. He got it under control, and he doesn't drink now. He has the abstinence mentality, and that's worked for him. But you know, did you have to reconcile, like, you know, your dad being, you know, maybe it sounds like a good dad in a lot of ways, but also somebody who has made this mistake or is continually making this mistake? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I had to accept him for who he was. And he's his own man. I'm not going to change his mind. I feel like him having grandchildren kind of changed him.
Really?
I feel like they kind of gave him some life and some mobility and just more like purpose and just a way forward. But I had to kind of accept that that's who he was, and I can't stop his drinking. I can't force him to not do that. And then, you know, he got into other things that I learned about, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, he's an adult and can do things recreationally, whatever, under the law. But I had to then stop worrying so much about him and worry about fathering my 4 children and trying to be a good husband.
Sure.
You know, and I really had to just kind of move on. And I feel like, going down this rabbit hole, like I have 2 little brothers, and because of my father's alcoholism, I feel like I was the dad almost. Right. And I'm the oldest of 3 brothers, and I feel like it was me and my mom kind of raising these 2 children. And not that they're like so much younger than me, but that's how it felt. Yeah. When I was a child.
You had to take on that parental role.
Yeah, and that sucked.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't want my oldest son, Noah, who's the biggest sweetheart I've ever met in my life. Like, I don't want him ever, I don't want myself being so absent to where he feels like he needs to step in for my other children. Right. You know, I would feel disgusting.
Right. Yeah. That's very, very profound. So you stated that you had to experience things or see things that no child ever should. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot easier to say it now because I've had time to process it. I've spoken to people about it, and a lot of time has passed. But I was sexually abused multiple times by men and women. Mm-hmm. The first time it happened, I was about 5 or 6 years old, Van Nuys, California. He was the son of my nanny, and she didn't know what was going on. My mom didn't know what was going on, and that was the first time that I ever had experienced something to where, as a child, I didn't think it was wrong. I was like, oh, this is just a normal thing.
Sure.
But I'll tell you, Austin, like, I remember the smell of the room. I remember how dark the closet was. I remember, like, the things. I still have that taste in my mouth of the assault. And I think it's just a deep reminder of, like, you never know what somebody's going through, but it also, again, doesn't have to define you.
Sure.
You know? And it happened again and again and again by him and multiple people, all the way up until I was probably about 13 or 14 years old, I think. Mm-hmm. And I hid it. I didn't tell a single soul until I was about 17 or 18.
Really?
I told my mom, and she freaked out. She cried.
Sure. What made you want to tell your mom?
I think it all just came rushing back to me.
Yeah.
And it was near Thanksgiving when I was like 17 or 18, and I was going to Carl's Jr. with my mom, and I don't know why, but I was like, Mom, I have to tell you something. and I told her, and she just broke down.
Right.
Because she felt that she had failed. She felt that it was her fault. And, obviously I spoke to therapists and, talked it all out and stuff like that. But I don't know, like, I feel like that kind of defined my childhood, and it shaped the way that I view things, like sexually, and it shaped the way that I don't even want another girl or boy to look at my daughter and sons.
Sure.
Like, people joke like, oh yeah, like, he's a good looking kid or whatever, and it just brings back these things, and I'm like, I will never ever think about sexualizing anything.
I've always thought that was odd, because I
Yeah.
also have children. I've got four daughters, and the things that people say when they just walk up to you in public when you've got your kids, some of them are, if you really think about it, it's strange. You said something, it defined your childhood, but this trauma clearly did not define you, in a negative way. You didn't allow it to take you down a negative path.
Yeah.
Was there some fear? Was part of your not wanting to drink, like maybe not wanting to mask those memories, those feelings? I mean, did that play a role in it?
I think so. I think it was just all the things. I think I was afraid of if I started drinking, then I would just probably end my own life. And because I've known people to do that, and unfortunately in the military, I mean, it's way more common than people would like to admit. And I didn't want to become one of those statistics.
Sure.
And I felt that alcohol was the gateway to that.
Yeah.
Of once you take a drink, then everything's going to come rushing in, and you have no other choice but to just take your own life.
Sure.
And honestly, like I almost did a few months ago. I think I called you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like alcohol related. I think it was just like me keeping everything to myself, and I felt that there was so much. I was like, being dead sounds amazing right now.
Right.
Like, so relieving, and it would just allow me to just rest, and everything would be okay. And it felt like a fantasy, and I was flirting with that line of like, well, what if I did do it? And I'm sure my wife and kids would be fine. I'm sure my friends would be fine. My parents would be okay. My brothers would be fine. And it got really, really scary. And I had to have a conversation with my wife and kind of make a plan of what do we do to make this not happen?
Sure.
So I feel like the turning point for me was I had a conversation with my buddy Tommy. He's an actor out in California, and we became like good friends, doing some suicide prevention work together and stuff like that. And he said something to the effect of like, Johnny, when are you going to take a break? Like, you're doing a lot of things for other people on camera, social media, shaking hands, like doing events. It's hard for me to say no. And he was like, when are you going to stop and do something for yourself?
Right.
And I just started crying like a baby. And I was like, Tommy, I don't know. I'm scared. Like, I'm really, really scared of this being kind of the end for me. And obviously he he talked to me like off a figurative ledge. And I spoke to you, and I spoke to probably two other really, really good friends. And if it weren't for my probably four to six men that I have in my life that are like my foundation.
Right.
I don't know if things would be different. I really don't know, but it definitely would have been. I wouldn't be surprised if it were different. And and obviously my wife, and so yeah, it was a really weird time, and I'm glad that I got through that. And but yeah, I think, bringing it back to alcohol, I feel like alcohol kind of accelerates some of those thoughts and maybe some of those actions. And one of my really, really good friends, Jake Bryan, he took his own life, and he heavily into alcohol, and to the point where it was like fun, and he was funnier, and he would crack these jokes, but in the background we were like, Jake, like, you got to slow down, brother.
Yeah.
And I've seen what it does to people, but I've also seen people overcome it and have a really, really good relationship with it. And again, like it doesn't define them. And I think myself, I was just afraid. I was afraid that alcohol would take me over. And I've had 2 back surgeries, and I've been on all sorts of medication, and they make you feel good. And I was afraid of getting addicted to those things. So I was just like, I had all these fears. But you know, for me now, I tell people like, let's not worry about something we can't control, but I can control these things.
Right.
So let's look at it through that lens. You know?
Yeah. It's funny that you talk about that. You know, in the tenets of pretty much every major religion, whether it be Islam or Christianity, you know, as an example, in the Christian Bible, it talks about conferring with 3 wise men, you know, when you're having struggles or you're facing a challenge or a choice that needs to be made. That's how you should go about it, right? And so it's interesting that that's what you chose to do. Like, I'm going to talk to my friends, people that I trust. That's really, really cool. And it sounds like it helped. You know, culturally in the military, there's an incredible pressure to drink. Yeah, I mean, you're getting massive amounts of pressure, and access to alcohol is, I mean, we've got a store dedicated to it on most military installations. Were there ever moments, you know, while you were not drinking, while you had made that choice, when people, you know, maybe not even ostracized you, unless they did, tell us about that, but, you know, where you felt left out, where you felt like there was something wrong, like you couldn't be part of the group? Can you talk to that a little bit?
100%. I mean, especially like one big example is you go to a military ball and like it's centered around this grog.
Yeah.
And like they're dumping alcohols from like all over the place and putting freaking dirt from boots in, you know.
The grog is the most heinous liquid humans have ever created.
It'll make you stronger. Now I feel
It'll
like
put hair on your chest.
But like, you know, it's those moments where I was like, okay, I'm gonna just hang back, and you know, this is not for me. And I think there were moments where I felt ostracized and kind of they put me in a compartment of oh, this guy doesn't drink, he's not fun, type of thing. But I was okay with that. You know, I didn't want to try to live my life to please those people, and just kind of write my own story.
Sure. Yeah. It's funny. I've been to NTC, the National Training Center at Fort Irwin, 3 times, you know, and that's where we certify units in the Army to deploy, to do a combat deployment. Well, one of the times, you know, they allowed us to go to Las Vegas, which isn't too far away. And, you know, after that night in Las Vegas, the next day when we were getting on the plane, one of our leaders in the unit had to be wheelchaired onto the plane because he was too drunk.
Wow.
And so, you know, it's even that indirect pressure of seeing your leadership consume alcohol, you know, and anything I say in this podcast is not coming from a place of judgment, because I have had more than my fair share of nights where I was blitzed out of my mind. So please don't take it that way for those of you viewing this. But yeah, like you get both the direct pressure of your peers and even subordinates saying like, come on, drink with us. You know what I mean? But then you also witness the people that are supposed to be the example. A lot of times they don't have a healthy relationship with alcohol. If they've been in the military 10 to 20 years, somewhere in there, they've had a lot of time to develop unhealthy habits, and habits that are not countered by necessarily anybody. You know, you go to any random barracks on a Wednesday night, and I mean, it's like a frat house. You know what I mean?
It's crazy the amounts of things that you would see in a barracks. Some of it people probably shouldn't speak of. Some of it, you know, I've seen some things that I didn't necessarily want to see in the barracks. But, you know, obviously, like, I want to be a good example for those guys and gals, too, in the barracks. And it's weird, like, I feel, and this is just my personal thought, I feel like a lot of my soldiers grew up without a father, without a mother, or without either of those figures in
or
their
even
life.
If they had those figures, maybe they weren't like super present all the time.
They weren't the best.
Yeah.
And they kind of look to us as kind of the how do you fill that void type of thing. So I try to be responsible for them too, because my personal belief is yes we're training soldiers, but we're also raising young men and women to be better younger men and women out in the civilian world.
Yeah, well, that's the hope, you know, and it's pretty incredible that you even have that thought process, because I feel like a lot of people forget, and it's easy to do. We've all done it. You know, in the hustle and bustle of military life, there's so many competing priorities. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we are charged with fighting and winning the nation's wars, but we are also charged with the care of our nation's sons and daughters. You know, oftentimes I'll hear leaders talk about standards and discipline in reference to the service member. And it's very rare that you hear leaders talk about the standards and discipline on everything that the service member is exposed to. You know, their housing situation, the food that we give them, like literally everything. And so it's pretty cool that you individually have decided like, oh, I need to be, you know, maybe not a parental figure, but I need to be a good example to these young individuals. That's pretty profound.
Thank you.
So, Johnny, you have a really interesting story because you personally had to overcome a lot, and you had a lot stacked against you that could have led you down a really dangerous, detrimental path with alcohol. You know, you never fell prey to that, and you've had a lot of success in spite of what you've been through. Can you tell me a little bit about your military career?
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing crazy or boisterous or special, and however, never had an Article 15. You know? Not many people could say that. You know, every time I've gone to a military school, an NCOES or just at like MRT or Small Arms Master Gunner or whatever it was, I told myself, like, you are going to be the best. You're going to be number one.
Sure.
Everyone else is second rate to you, not like as a human, but I kind of told myself those things. And again, you know, like BLC, ALC, SLC, all those schools, those guys go out and they drink and they party and then they show up late and then they're not succeeding. And I was like, I'm not going to be that way. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I think having that clear mind of these are my goals for these schools in the military, or these promotions that I want to get, maybe these these orders that I'm trying to get or whatever. I think me having that mindset of like, it's okay to have alcohol, I'm not going to like make it my whole personality. I think that kind of gave me a leg up in some of those schools, at least.
Sure, yeah. Did you ever find yourself, like when you went like TDY or traveling for the military or at these schools, did you ever find yourself kind of being the de facto DD, the designated driver, the parental unit for everybody else that was getting trashed? Because, I mean, that's pretty common. You know, any military school, you travel to learn something new. It's basically a drinking party.
Yeah, and it's annoying because like I was the dad.
Yeah.
I ended up like taking care of people, and then you see them and how they're acting. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is so annoying. Y'all are buying all my food and paying for all my gas. And but no, and I don't mind doing those things because at the end of the day, I'd rather everyone be safe.
Yeah.
And have a good time, but also be safe.
I want you to tell me a little bit about your success as a content creator, right? You're in the social media space, and you are, quite frankly, famous in the military community. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I started doing content like just over a year ago, and I did it. I just graduated. A few years ago, I did MRT, Master Resiliency Trainer, and now that's not a thing. It's gone. So it's like fake news, it doesn't matter. But I came out of that school and I was like, oh yeah, like I have all the good feelings, all the good vibes. Like I'm going to help people. I was like, how do I do that? So I started making TikToks and talking about my favorite quotes and my favorite motivational speakers and stuff like that. And people didn't care. That was like too feel good, and they just wanted to laugh. They wanted to learn. They wanted to hear something funny or cool. And once I figured that out, I was like, oh, okay, these people don't care about my happy feelings. I'll just talk about the news or talk about veterans benefits, talk about a silly military skit that all of us have gone through. And then people started watching. And then I started gravitating towards, I started trying to emulate content creators that I liked, and I'm like, oh, I like how they did their lighting. I like where they place their camera.
Sure.
I like the tone in which they are speaking or whatever. So I started getting bits and pieces of those things. And one thing I'm really glad I didn't pull from you was your voice. I was like, that would really screwed me up. But I think what I did pull from you was, like the silly skits of the monologues of yourself, and like I started doing those. And just like in my own fashion, and people started watching, and I grew from 0 to across all the platforms now. Just over a year later, I have almost 300,000, and I'm reaching like tens of millions of people a month. And once I started understanding that, I was like, oh, okay, I have a responsibility to these people because they trust me.
Yeah.
Much like I'm sure the majority of your platform, those people trust you.
Yeah.
and
They shouldn't.
They
They
feel,
do.
I know, and they feel that you're transparent, and they probably feel like, oh, whatever Austin says, I that's a good guy, so I can gravitate towards that. So I try to, whenever I'm speaking or whatever's in my background or whatever I'm holding, I just make sure that it's something that's like that I agree with, and I just want my audience to trust me and to know that like I got their back, and they'll have mine as well.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about your career in both the military and as a content creator, influencer. Some people refer to us as that. Over the course of either of those, have you like mentored or counseled or just kind of tried to help somebody that maybe you identified that didn't have a good relationship with alcohol or really anything else?
Yeah, it happens a lot more than people would think. I get messages all the time of, I was just involved in this fill in the blank situation, and I'm able to have conversations one-on-one, like face-to-face with people as well, of, hey, maybe this is leading you down a path that it's not the best one that I see for you, or but also in that inbox. And I've actually had to take people on to help me with those messages, because I don't want anybody to be like left unheard, because you never know when somebody that can't, you might be their last resort. Like, I'm going to reach out to Austin, I'm going to reach out to Johnny, and if they don't help me or if they don't answer me, like, this is it. That's it. That's my last resort.
Right.
So
I
try to be really intentional. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure. I mean, that really the only reason that I look through messages at this point is, to try and identify people in crisis.
Yeah.
And
You saw my message.
Yeah, I did. I did see your message, and then we became fast friends.
It's true.
It's like the dog and the hound.
Yeah.
A tale as old as time. But yeah, no, I mean, that's pretty cool. So you've gotten, I mean, you are a person that has really a good, healthy relationship with alcohol, and you've seen the negative impacts. So that has, I'm sure that has had to help allow you to counsel to and mentor, young people in the military, maybe even your peers. Is this something like, is this a story that you want to use your platform to tell one day, and maybe try and help people overcome their own issues?
I think so. I mean, I'm personally able to, like you said, enjoy it. Like, I don't want to glamorize alcohol, but I can have a tasty drink, and I'm like, that was delicious.
Sure.
I can't wait to have that again, like next time or whatever. I'm able to try different beers that I might enjoy from like different regions of the country and stuff like that. But also, I want to use that to show people it's okay. You can drink if you'd like, and this is how I've grown to have a good relationship with alcohol, and how I've not allowed it to control my career, my life, how I treat my kids, how I treat my wife. And it's like an alcohol success story, if you will. I don't know, just for lack of words. But, I try to use moments on my platform to spread good messages. Sure. And I don't think I have. And if I have, I'm sorry. But I don't think I've made like a video on my platform to where it showed alcohol being like, oh, this is awesome. Like, you should party, you should do this, you should let loose and lose control and stuff like that. But I try to be super mindful now of things that I say, because I can make a video and in 24 hours it could reach 1 million people. So you really have to be careful. Yeah,
it's a lot of pressure. It's a huge responsibility, especially when we are trying to steward the profession. Both of us are active duty. And I mean, it's kind of nerve-wracking at times, especially if you're putting out something that you're like, I really think this message needs to be spread, but I also think maybe this is approaching the line. Maybe somebody takes this the wrong way. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, there's people that watch us that we don't even know about. Like the Sergeant Major of the Army, he loves my videos.
Yeah.
But also I imitate him.
Yeah.
And
and you do it very well.
Yeah, and like the first time I seen him, I don't know why, but like I saw his face and I was like, he looks like Batman, but like he would sound like Cartman Batman. So whenever I made his voice, I made it sound like this. And then I did a video like that. I did a video and I was like, I am terrified right now. I'm going to publish this video. And like, I'm going to, I superimpose my eyes and my lips over their face. And then also like Carlos Ruiz, the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps.
That's my favorite one that you do.
Yeah, he's always like, hey, Mega Weimer, how you doing, fool? Like, he's Hispanic, and I'm Hispanic, so I feel like I have a little free reign.
Have you talked to him, too?
I have his wife. His wife messaged me, and she was like, hey, I just want to let you know that Carlos loves those videos. I was like, oh, thank God.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but yeah, most of them have reached out. The MCPON, the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, like all their aides have basically reached out and said, like, we love what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. So I think like we need more of that. Like senior leader examples of like, hey, it's okay to do this stuff, the silly stuff on the internet. Like these guys are actually helping. I feel like for the most part, what we do on the internet positively impacts
for sure
our audience.
100%. I mean, I'm biased, but I agree.
Yeah.
So going back to some of the successes you've had in the content creation space, you've had a lot of really unique opportunities. You've gotten to work with Ford. You personally know people at TikTok Corporate. You got to make a video with Bryan Cranston. I mean, can you talk to some of those specific experiences that you had? Because I really want to highlight to the audience that despite what you may have been through involving alcohol, whether it was your own consumption or the consumption of people close to you that impacted you, you can still live a full and successful life after that. The story doesn't end. It's not over. Can you talk a little bit about some of the specific opportunities that you've had?
Yeah. I mean, I've been in rooms with people that I never thought I'd be in a room with.
Yeah.
I've shaken hands with people that I feel like I still don't deserve to have even touched them or looked at them. I count it all as a huge blessing, and I know it could go away tomorrow.
Yep.
And so I try to take advantage of those moments and try to just use them to their full effect. And it's been really cool too to show my kids, like Daddy does hard things, and it pays off. And people say, "Oh, you're so lucky to have this happen," or "You're so lucky that you talked to Ford or Bryan Cranston," or.
Sure.
But no, like I created this, and it's not luck. It's me putting in those long hours, like researching, trying to be funny, trying to be serious, trying to educate people, in order to get to where I am now. And for me, I feel like it's just the beginning. But those moments are super special to me because I met, like for example, Craig from Craigslist. I didn't even know that was
Craig?
Yeah,
the guy with the list.
Yeah. The list. He has the list. And I didn't even know he was a real person. And I met him.
I didn't either.
Yeah. He's a nice, jovial person. But I've met like him. I've spoken with like Jerry Seinfeld and Nora Jones, Bruce Springsteen, and all these people. And I'm like, who am I? I'm just this dude, And I'm silly on the internet sometimes. So I try to remind myself these moments are special. And, but to go back to your point of, alcohol didn't just put a roadblock, and I never did anything with it. Like I tell people, when you're hit with an obstacle in the military, like you either go around it, you go back to where you came from, or you just bust right through it. And I try to breach obstacles wherever I can. So alcohol was an obstacle in my father's life, in my life for a bit, and in my wife's family's lives. And I chose to just burst through them and just try to be as successful as I could, and to not let that define me.
Sure. Yeah. What do you think is next for you as far as what you want to do with the military, with content creation, or with both?
Yeah. So I think because of the experiences that I've had in my life, I've been very partial to counseling people.
Yeah.
And just helping people. Like I have a personal belief of I go through hard things so I can help other people go through those things. And because of that, like MRT, the resiliency trainer, like that was awesome. That was kind of a catapult to like, oh, I want to do these cool things. Like I have a bachelor's in psychology. I have an undergraduate certificate in mental health counseling, and I'm in a master's program to be a licensed professional counselor. And my overarching goal, like my whole goal, is to one day either be a part of or start a nonprofit that gives clinical mental health counseling to veterans and their family members, like not just the veteran, but their family members, because the family experience those things as well, just from a different perspective, but at to no cost to those people. Because if I could help a veteran or a family member of a veteran with just talking to somebody, and if the VA can't get a hold of them right away, or maybe it's inaccessible or anything like that, if I could just help one person, that's enough for me.
Sure.
So I want to make that available to people as much as I can everywhere around the world.
You've shared a lot over the course of this, I really, really appreciate it. Now, what I'd like to hear is any advice that you have for people that are, have identified that they're struggling, maybe wondering if they're struggling. Do you have anything to say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard question because there's no easy answer. There might not even be like a right answer for everyone because we all have different experiences. We all have different tolerances. We all have different perspectives of things. We don't know each other's stories. However, I think one of the things that I would tell myself or people maybe in similar situations that I was in was there's strength in numbers, and it's okay to listen to other people, even if they say something that you might disagree with.
Yeah.
It's always good to have that outside perspective and to just be honest with yourself. And it's okay to not be okay. Like people say that all the time, but it really is true. You don't always have to be this perky, perfect person all the time. And sometimes you just have to be yourself. You have to be sad. You have to be mad. You have to let yourself experience those things in order to see, okay, how do we work through them now?
And experience them, without alcohol.
Exactly.
Without alcohol involved. Yeah. It's just normal human emotions. It's what we all go through. I think that we do have an issue, wanting to medicate ourselves through normal human emotions.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with experiencing sadness or anger. Those are just normal things that we should all learn how to regulate as adults.
I agree.
But yeah, no, I appreciate that. All right. That was some phenomenal advice. I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate your candor and vulnerability. And now I'd like to give you the opportunity to say, really whatever you want. If we missed anything, I'm not like a good interviewer. And so I'm giving you the opportunity to say what you feel you need to say. What did we miss?
Honestly, I feel like we hit a lot of things. But if I were to just kind of speak directly to somebody that might be struggling or anything like that, or speak to myself years ago, I would say that, like a lot of people in our community, we love to do things alone. We love to just be strong and say, I got this. It's fine. And that's okay. If that's the way that you're finding success, totally fine. That's not always the best practice for people. It's okay to have somebody in your corner or multiple people. And I suggest it. I suggest having a sounding board of men and women that you really, really trust, and that'll really be those bumpers on a bowling alley of, hey, you need to shift left a little bit, like lift, fire, shift left, shift right, whatever. And that, again, it's not always going to be successful the first time, but if you keep trying to improve yourself, keep trying to change narratives, to change your story and to become the successful person that you might want to be one day, like you will get there. It's just persistence, and just that relentless, like, I'm going to get this done type of thing. You just have to keep that up.
Yeah. This stuff is hard. I mean, it's hard dealing with addiction. It's hard dealing with, something that is so culturally accepted, while also being so detrimental to so many people. Well, thank you so much for being here, Johnny. I think I speak not only for myself, but the team that's helping create this podcast and the audience, saying thank you for being willing to fly out halfway across the country, be completely vulnerable, give us some good candor, and just tell your story, a story of triumph and inspiration through adversity, and adversity that you didn't even cause, just that you were impacted by. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah.
This is the Check Your Six Pack podcast. We are going to be having numerous guests that have dealt with adversity related to alcohol consumption, either their own or the consumption of others, and just telling their stories, more stories of inspiration and triumph, of success through this. The story is not over just because you've faced something hard. Sometimes that's just the beginning. You did a great job. You did a great job kicking this off.
Just kidding.
And I am so excited to hear the rest of our guests.
I can't wait either. It's going to be great.
Welcome to Behind the Beakers. I'm Dr. Sarah Maggio, and my background's in behavioral neuroscience and psychopharmacology.
And I'm Kelly Huber, and my background is in pharmaceutical sciences. We're both scientists working for the Henry Jackson Foundation for the Advancement of Military Medicine on contract with the Center for the Study of Traumatic Stress.
And I'm a research assistant professor at Uniformed Services University in the Department of Psychiatry. And we are not here to judge you or demonize alcohol use.
We're here to explain some of the science behind the booze.
Understanding how alcohol impacts your brain and body can help you make informed decisions about your relationship with alcohol.
There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to developing a healthier relationship with alcohol.
And we hope that this information helps you decide what the best fit is for you.
Now let's kick this off with some drunk history. History of drinking.
Alcohol has played an important role in society for thousands of years, dating back to about 7,000 BC, far longer than any other psychoactive substance.
And alcohol has always seemed to have a seat at the table for important social occasions like births, funerals, marriages, mess nights, and even religious ceremonies.
Alcohol use disorder, or AUD, has only recently been recognized as a disorder.
In the 1950s, alcoholism was recognized as an illness, progressing to being understood as a long-term and potentially fatal disease in the 1970s. In the 1990s, the understanding of alcoholism as a disease was expanded to encompass genetic, psychosocial, and environmental factors characterized by a lack of control over drinking, drinking despite negative consequences, and denial of harmful drinking behaviors.
When we say negative consequences, we mean drinking despite experiencing problems with your physical and mental health, interpersonal relationships, maybe loss of your job. This could also include legal, financial, and spiritual problems.
It's important to note that denial is a common experience of alcohol use disorder and is almost always a major obstacle to recovery.
And as Austin and Johnny mentioned, alcohol has been deeply embedded into military culture.
In fact, 1 in 3 service members report binge drinking, which is 5 or more drinks for men or 4 or more drinks for women in the span of roughly 2 hours.
And watch out, binge drinking can sneak up on you.
Like a leopard, moving silently. You never see it. Claws coming out, fangs bared, ready to pounce. 1 second you're relaxing under the shade, and the next you're on the ground, bleeding into the earth.
All that is to say that a few drinks can quickly turn into binge drinking if you're not careful. It's important to watch out for this because regular heavy drinking like this can cause damage to your nervous system, especially the brain.
The nerds call this neurodegeneration, which is essentially damage or destruction of neurons, a type of cell in your nervous system.
Neurodegeneration can cause impairments in cognitive function, which are dopamine-related things like memory, attention, learning, and generally higher-level brain stuff.
Now let's go into the deeper part of the science. Alcohol makes us feel good by launching a full-scale assault on the brain's dopamine systems.
So you've probably heard of the neurotransmitter dopamine, a brain chemical that's best known for the role that it plays in reward and pleasure. The happy brain chemical. This happens primarily through action on the brain's mesolimbic dopamine pathway. But that's not all dopamine does.
There are 4 major dopamine pathways in the brain with different and multiple functions.
They all originate in relatively the same area in the midbrain, right at the top of the spinal cord. We mentioned mesolimbic. There's also nigrostriatal, tuberoinfundibular. Super fun name, but overall kind of a boring pathway.
Focus!
Sorry, so close though. The mesolimbic pathway, which is responsible for controlling attention, motivation, and memory. This, along with the mesolimbic, makes up the mesocortical limbic pathway. Sorry, no acronym for that. Believe it or not, that is only 2 words.
And alcohol and other psychoactive substances actually cause increases in dopamine through these brain circuits.
And alcohol has its dirty little hands in disrupting all of these, plus virtually all other major neurotransmitter systems.
Those alcohol-induced dopamine increases can betray you over time. Long-term binge or heavy drinking can cause your brain to rewire those circuits to believe that alcohol is important for your survival. So why is this especially important for people in the military?
Warfighter lethality.
You can't just use that as the whole reason. Please elaborate on your buzzword.
Alcohol can impact your physical and mental performance, and not just for the night of or the morning after. Chronic or consistent heavy drinking can not only affect the liver, but also the central nervous system, cardiovascular system, immune, endocrine, gastrointestinal systems, and even increase your risk for several different types of cancers.
We take a closer look into this throughout the episodes, but generally speaking, the longer and heavier the drinking, the greater the harmful side effects.
Austin and Johnny also talked a bit about how many service members have the perception that drinking is encouraged in the military and sometimes feels like maybe it's even glorified.
Combine that with the operational demands of the military, like unpredictability, frequent relocations, highly demanding work schedules, and the impossible feat of trying to balance professional and personal life demands.
Yikes. Major high stress. Reporting for duty, ready to turn your brain into a soup sandwich, just add heavy drinking. So how can you avoid falling into the trap?
Johnny used a phrase that I actually really liked, purpose-driven drinking. We need to examine the reasons for why we drink, and that can actually be really helpful for you to examine your relationship with alcohol and better understanding the behaviors that lead you to drink.
It can also be a useful tool for finding motivation to cut back, quit, or develop a healthier relationship with alcohol.
So before taking that next drink, ask yourself, why am I doing this? And also consider that how much you drink is also an important factor.
Am I drinking to celebrate or to forget?
Am I drinking to relax or deal with a stressful day?
Am I drinking with friends because it's fun or because I don't want to feel lonely, anxious, or get stuck in my own head?
Drinking in moderation, occasionally, like maybe 1 to 2 drinks, is fine. It's not unhealthy to drink during socializing.
But when you start drinking for the wrong reasons, like numbing stress or trauma or loneliness, you're more likely to encounter harmful drinking behaviors that can lead to physical dependence and other health issues over time.
Trauma is actually the most likely common environmental driver for unhealthy drinking behaviors. And using alcohol to self-medicate can actually rewire your brain to associate relief from alcohol with negative feelings.
And although alcohol can produce short-term relief, it's much better in the long term to enhance your mental readiness arsenal with healthy coping mechanisms and tactics.
So if your why keeps pointing to escaping your feelings or avoid dealing with your problems, it may be time to rethink the mission. But before we wrap, true or false, cognitive impairments that result from years of heavy drinking are reversible.
This is actually true. As long as there isn't any structural damage, many cognitive deficits resulting from heavy alcohol use can be reversed with extended abstinence, keeping in mind that drinking in moderation is the best way to avoid long-term damage.
So that's it for today's brain briefing. But remember,
alcohol not only impairs your judgment, it can also recruit you for the Article 15 Club.
Hey, I want to tell you about push-ups for the Mind.mil. It's not just another mindfulness app. It's an evidence-based training program built for service members by neuroscientists working with the Department of War. This isn't about zoning out or relaxing. It's a structured training path starting with short daily sessions that build into a 4-week program. You'll learn how attention works and you'll train it, just like physical fitness. Each step builds mental strength, sharper focus, and better composure under stress. It's designed for the demands of military life, and it's free for anyone with a .mil address. Start your journey with push-ups for the mind.mil and make your attention mission ready.